Hello, everybody. Welcome to today's live. So, what's on the agenda for today? Well, we're going to talk about what it takes to successfully do a business waiver. You'll notice that a lot of the videos are on different kinds of waivers. First of all, because there are lots of different kinds of waivers. And secondly, nobody's perfect. Okay, everybody at one point or another, many people are inadmissible to the US, but they still want to come here. And this is how to do it. So, what I'm going to do is go through what it takes to do a good business waiver, when you would need it, and so forth. And then after, I'll have the old question and answer period. So, if you have questions, go ahead and just type them out now or whenever you get on. That's okay. And then what will happen is once I'm done with the discussion on how to prepare a good business waiver, I will let you know and I will answer all of the questions. Okay? So go ahead and ask. All right. So first of all, what is a business waiver? Okay. For all intents and purposes, there's lots of different kinds of visas somebody can come here. Lots of different business visas. H-1B for specialty occupation visa, H-2B for temporary type work, H-3 for trainee type work, E-2 for investment visa, O-1 extraordinary ability, R-1 is religious. You could do L1 intercompany transferee. So there's lots. Okay. So given that, and given that somebody comes here for a business purpose, and also there's just the good old B1, okay, that's a temporary one, or the WB, okay. See, there's lots of them. I could keep going on, but those are the most popular. So the key here is that somebody is inadmissible for some reason, and they want to come in. So let's say, for example, somebody sends me an email for a consult, and they say, I need to come into the U.S. for a conference for my company, and in 2009, long time ago, I was young and dumb, and I did a stupid thing, and I committed burglary, and I got like 10 days in jail or 20 days in jail. Is it going to be a problem when I come into the U.S.? And so chances are it will be, okay? Because first of all, the officers don't have all the statutory language of everything on the tip of their tongues from everywhere. Battery is defined in Georgia is going to be battery different definition than California versus New York and so forth. And it's federal law that they have to apply. Okay, so whether you're inadmissible is based on federal law, except the federal law will look at the statutory definition of the state law in many cases, if that makes sense. So first thing I do when somebody comes to me like that and they're coming in on some business visa is first I need to determine if they are inadmissible. Okay, so I get a copy of whatever the criminal record is they have. I see what the what the conviction was. I look at the statutory language and I analyze whether or not a waiver is going to be needed. And then if one is going to be needed, okay, because that means they're inadmissible. And if it is needed, I need to make sure a waiver is available. And then if a waiver is available, sometimes more than one type of waiver is available. And obviously, you want to go to the easier one. Okay, why would you submit a waiver that's harder to get approved than a waiver that's not harder to get approved? Okay, like for example, you have a various crime that's older than 15 years. You could do the regular criminal waiver, you could do the regular submissions and so forth, or you could do the easier one, where if you have a crime older than 15 years, you get under this easier type waiver. So that's what I'm talking about. Never submit the harder one. Okay, no matter how good you think your case is. Always submit the easier one. Okay. So that's that. So first, whether a waiver is needed, if a waiver is needed, what waiver is needed, and then it's preparation time. Okay, it's preparation time for the waiver. So when you're coming in on a business visa, the non-immigrant waiver is referred to as a 212D3. That's the statutory element. So it's a non-immigrant waiver. Non-immigrant meaning you're not getting the green card, but you're coming for some other reasons. So it's a business visa. And then you'll want to put the waiver together. So how do you do that? How do you make it so that it's more convincing? First, you have to understand that the waiver is what's needed for you to get your foot in the door. Okay? It doesn't matter how good your visa is, how easily it can be approved. It doesn't matter if the waiver's not approved. If the waiver's not approved, bye-bye. Okay? So you got to get the waiver approved. So I'll just tell you more or less how my firm does it. So first what we do is we have to disclose everything. Okay? Some people, what happens is, and this is unfortunate, they'll go themselves, right? And they'll think to themselves, for example, they were arrested, but they weren't convicted, so they don't have to disclose it. And of course, the arrest is on the record, all right? Or during the discussion, it's found out that they were arrested. And, when they said no, that there's no criminal record, of course, the first thing that they get hit with now is fraud and misrepresentation. So even if, in that case, the arrest would not have made them inadmissible, the lying about it and not representing properly about it at the interview has now created a new ground of inadmissibility under fraud, of which they need a waiver for the fraud, okay? Which is all the more reason you need to make sure you know what you're doing before you go in there and don't play games with immigration, okay? So the first thing we do is disclose everything. Now, when I say disclose everything, you don't have to go into immense detail about the conviction and what happened and all the background and all that stuff, because we want to minimize the bad stuff. And of course, the bad stuff is the conviction or whatever the reason is for the inadmissibility. So you can disclose it without committing misrepresentation, without elaborating. Okay, that's a nice line that you have to work on. Okay, that's what has to be done. So then after it's disclosed what it is, then I have to disclose what provision they are inadmissible under. So I say that, and I write it in the legal brief, and then I write in the legal brief what provision of a waiver they're eligible for. Okay, so that's the whole intro. Then there has to be a declaration from the person who is wanting to get the waiver. Understand that anything I say in my brief, while it might be beautiful and fantastic, is not evidence per se. It uses the evidence, it brings it in, but we need to have a nice declaration from the person who wants the waiver. And what is the purpose of the declaration? Okay, there you might go into more detail. Okay, let's say, for example, that one I was talking about, how there was an arrest but no conviction. Might go into the fact, yes, I was arrested for domestic violence, but it was a complete misunderstanding because of this and that reason, and that's why it was dropped. That's why I was never convicted, okay? Without, of course, admitting there was any domestic violence or without showing that there was any type of, conviction itself. So the declaration shows the facts behind what happened. You could start it off by saying, I was young and stupid and did some, but I haven't done anything since then. So you do want to show rehabilitation. Okay, you want the officer to feel sorry for you. Okay, by the end of reading the declaration, you want the officer crying. Okay, I mean, I'm exaggerating a little, but you want them to have sympathy for you, because when they first start reading the declaration, they could care less who you are, and they are predisposed to say no. That's a fact. When you walk in the door asking for a waiver, you got to assume that they're starting off by saying no. That is the blatant truth. So you have to convince them by the time it's over that they're going to say yes, okay? So a nice detailed declaration, which is for real, not blowing smoke, has to be done. Has to show mitigating circumstances why the crime may have occurred in the first place, has to show rehabilitation, remorse, has to show good moral character, okay? Has to show why the waiver should be granted. You have to understand that a waiver, for all intents and purposes, as much work as it goes into it, as much evidence that goes into it, for all intents and purposes, it's a scale. You have the bad stuff on one side. Now, I'm holding my hands up like you could see, but they're outside the screen. Okay. You have the bad stuff on one side and the good stuff on the other side. Okay? And the reality is you want the good stuff to outweigh the bad stuff. That's the bottom line. Okay? If it outweighs it enough, the waiver will be granted. If it doesn't outweigh it enough, the waiver will be denied. Okay? That's sort of a simplified view of it, but that's what it comes down to. So, in addition to the declaration, there has to be all kinds of argument as to why, and when I say argument, I don't mean like arguing with your spouse. I mean legal argument to convince the officer why to grant it. So you have to show why the waiver should be granted. So we need to show family ties to the U.S. You know, let's say you committed the crime a long time ago when you were single and now you have a spouse and 4 kids born in the U.S. Okay, that makes a big difference. Let's say you've done a lot of volunteer work at the church, or, you know, you've had no crimes for 20 years, or you did an anger management course. You know, you put the whole thing in there. Now, when I say you put the whole thing in there, it's not like you just fill it with junk. I mean, just filling a waiver with junk is no good. So what you want to do is fill it with relevant, good stuff. Okay? And once you have filled the petition with, you know, the legal brief, the declarations, the rehabilitation, you might also get a psychological report showing you've been rehabilitated and showing why you might have done what you did. I mean, let's say that, you know, let's say your parent died or something, or you had some traumatic event at the time and you just kind of went off the rails and did a bunch of bad stuff for a year. You know, psychologists might be able to point some light on that and make a good report. It depends. All right. So you do all that. And then you have to get out of your mind that you're going to walk in there with a waiver and walk out with an approval. It doesn't work like that. They will take the waiver and then they'll say goodbye. Okay. And they will review it along with the visa itself. And ultimately you'll get something in the mail. It'll either be approval, denial, or an RFE, which is a request for more evidence. Okay. And if you get that, then you have to proceed forward. So that's how it works. Now, as far as the business visas itself, the more, I don't know, this is not a legal way to say it, but the more businessy the visa is, the better chance the waiver will be approved. Let me give you an example. Let's say you're going to come in for one little conference lasting a day and a half, and it has no impact substantial on anything. Well, you know, you can still get the waiver approved, obviously. But let's say you're coming in on an E2 investment visa. You're investing $250,000. You've already got a flow chart for 12 people you're going to hire. You're going to buy a business in operation. You're going to buy it in a targeted area that needs the business. You know, obviously, if you come in with that and then do the waiver, it's a lot more powerful. Okay, that's just a reality. So, you know, the better the business visa, the better chances of the waiver. And then the question people always ask, well, how long? Well, it depends. You know, generally you have to wait a few months. Okay, generally. I mean, it is possible to expedite it under certain circumstances, but generally that's what you have to wait. So if you're inadmissible, don't make the mistake of committing fraud by not telling them, and then don't make the mistake of not doing a really good business waiver. Okay? So that's it on that. Let me scroll back, see if we have any questions, and I'll answer them. How's everybody doing this fine morning? All right. Let me just scroll. Sometimes I'm scrolling and it goes like 300 people past and I have to scroll back up again. So I have to scroll a little bit slowly. While I'm scrolling, feel free to send me some hearts. It's always nice to see those go up. You know, shows you like what I'm saying. Okay. And I always do. I do 2 or 3 lives a week. just to get the subjects out there. Because as you might have guessed, immigration is like a 10,000 piece puzzle. You might have read and know about one piece, or two pieces, but you got to know the whole kit and caboodle to make sure you're protected. Okay. Just a minute. I'm scrolling down a lot here, but I don't see any questions yet. I know I saw some, but I scrolled past them because I want to keep track of what I do here. Just a minute. All right. We're almost to where I saw the question. Okay. What papers can prove good character? Okay, well, you mean good moral character. It's not just papers, okay? Good moral character can be proven in many different kinds of ways, okay? And it's very specific to the case. That's why sometimes I'll get people who will sign up a case and they'll, 3 days later, they go, "Are you done?" Okay. I say, you've got to be patient. It takes time. Every case is different. So in order to prove good moral character, you first have to go to what it is that is showing they don't have or they didn't have at the time. Because I'm assuming you're asking that because there's something that would make you inadmissible. So let's say that it was a crime, okay? So go to the crime first, and then you have to, again, show why the crime occurred. And then for rehabilitation, that helps to show good moral character, show you've been rehabilitated, show how many years have passed, show how you take care of your family, your spouse, your kids, your mother, your father. You can see where I'm going with this. I mean, every case is different. I mean, you might be saying to yourself, I'm not married and I don't have any kids. How can I show that? Well, obviously you can't, okay? But that doesn't mean you can't show that you haven't worked as a productive person of society for the last 15 years or however since the crime might have been committed. Keeping in mind that not all inadmissibility is just because of crimes. You might have entered with a fake green card, okay? So that's fraud. So you need to do a fraud waiver. You might get into why you did that. Maybe you were escaping something from your home country and you couldn't stay, okay? Maybe you were starving because there was, food. I'm not saying that gives you legal reason to come in, but that might help show why you did that. And then you can show, again, all the stuff that has happened good from the time of inadmissibility till now. And you want to break it up. You don't want to just, throw a bunch of spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks. You want to be coherent. Okay, show the stuff you've done as far as religion goes. That might be good. Show the stuff you've done for work, for family, for volunteering, for rehabilitation. Okay, all of that. That's the ways you can show it. And then, of course, you can get supporting declarations from friends, and just so you know, a supporting declaration say how fantastic person you are. The less they know you, meaning the less closer they are to you, the more credible it is. So obviously, if you have your mother write something, they're going to say, she'll say you're a wonderful boy and there's no way you could possibly do anything wrong. But the immigration office is going to look at that and go, well, your mother said that. So of course she's going to say that. But obviously if you have, a coworker say that, or you have your boss, or you have a priest, or you have somebody you helped, okay, someone who's not related to you, that'll be a lot better. Okay? So there's lots of other ways, but that gives you a general intro. All right. Let me scroll down and see what else we have here. Okay. Can we get FOIA from DOS? A visitor keeps getting declined. I mean, you can. You can get a FOIA from DOS, but I can tell you why they keep getting denied. They keep getting denied because they have non-immigrant, they can't prove non-immigrant intent. Okay, that's the reality. What's the use of going through the process to get a FOIA from DOS, Department of State, if number one, they're going to redact half the stuff, of which if they do that, you're going to have to appeal it, and that's going to take time and money. And then you're going to get to the real reason of why it was denied. Okay, I mean, obviously, if I was to speak to the person, I'd find if there was something different. But I can tell you the realistic reason is that they can't prove that they intend on going back to their home country. So let's just say they're from India. And let's say that they're single and young, okay? And let's say they go to the interview and the officer says, so what are you planning on doing? And I'm going to exaggerate so you get the point. So the officer says, well, what are you planning on doing when you go to the U.S.? And this person, let's say it's a her, she goes, well, I'm going to go to the U.S. I'm going to eventually marry a lawful permanent resident or citizen there. And then I'm going to stay there forever and I'm going to die in the United States. And I have absolutely no intention of ever coming back to India. Okay. Obviously, she would not say that. But I'm giving you the point, right? So, in that point, she can't prove that she has non-immigrant intent. You have to understand, when someone comes on a visitor visa, unlike in the U.S. where you're innocent until proven guilty, it's the opposite with a visitor visa. You are presumed to have immigrant intent. You are presumed to have it until you show them otherwise. Okay? So getting a FOIA, for all intents reasons, is useless. Because without even speaking to you, without speaking to the person, I'm about 98% sure as to why it was denied. If this person committed a crime, you would already know why the person's not coming in. You wouldn't say, why can we get a FOIA? If this person had a prior deportation order or unlawful stays in the U.S., you wouldn't be saying, I want to see the FOIA. You would already know why they can't come in. Okay? So there's different groups of people that are more likely to have it denied than others. Okay, I mean, obviously, single, young, or on the other end, real old and young. Real old can come in there. I'll say, well, are you retired? They'll go, yes. Go, well, who do you have in the U.S.? Well, I have 4 of my U.S. citizen children in the U.S., but I don't plan on staying there. Okay, they know that's a lie. They know the second this person gets in the U.S., they're going to be petitioned and they're never coming back. And they're going to have one of their kids, look after them. So there's all kinds of ways of proving non-immigrant intent. That's the key of what needs to be done here, not getting a FOIA. Okay? All right, let me continue. How long does it take 212 waiver process time? Well, jurisdictionally, that depends where it's being submitted. Okay? A 212 can be that's a permission to re-enter. That's a deportation order. And for whatever reason, and all these good reasons, they essentially send this petition in to say, forget about the deportation, let me in legally, however I can do it. So sometimes you can submit it inside the U.S., sometimes you can submit it outside the U.S., and it also depends on the consulate. For all intents purposes, you want to basically look at about 6 months, and that could vary. It could be less, it could be more. I mean, I have some people that on the 6th month and 1 day, they're calling everybody under the sun to see why it hasn't been adjudicated. And by that, I mean, they're seeing why it hasn't been approved. Okay, so that's about how long it takes. So you need to make sure it's really strong, though. If it's not really strong, it'll just be denied, and it doesn't matter how else you come in without an approved I-212. Okay? All right. I sold my motorcycle to a guy, and he only paid... Okay. Well, this has nothing to do with immigration. I mean, I could answer it, but it has nothing to do with immigration, so we'll just let that one slide. Because this is an Immigration Live. All right. Does the motion delay the I-45 approval? Well, it depends what motion. I'm not sure if you asked about making a motion. Okay, I don't know what motion you're talking about. The 485, if it's being adjudicated, you don't need to have a motion anyways. Okay, I mean, I don't know what's going on with the 485. Chances are, if you're doing a motion, it either has already been denied or is in an administrative hold where it's like in a black hole and not being adjudicated. So I need to know why you're doing a motion and what the motion is for in order to answer that. Okay. Let's see. All right. Well, I think I've answered all the questions out for today and given my spiel on how to prepare a business waiver. So hopefully it helped you a little bit, especially if you're going to try doing it yourself. If not, just give my office a call, let you know what it'll take, and we'll get the best one out there for you. Okay. Everybody have a good rest of your day.